It's right near all kinds of job opportunities. And there was also this beautiful church that we know needs to be preserved and restored.
Woo!
And we've actually done quite a bit of preservation work. This building, you'll see it behind here, is a 100-year-old building. It was an apartment building that we renovated and made new, and we kept our existing residents there. Oh yes, one of our other board members, Maggie.
Yep.
Yeah, so we believe in both preserving the existing character of neighborhoods, but also enhancing and making new. So we both buy existing buildings and then we renovate and create new buildings. So we do a bit of both. But we saw this church as a great opportunity. We know it had to be saved, and we thought we think we might be able to do something here. But we recognize that we're new to Venice, so we do want to hear from all of you as to what you would like to see happen at the church, what needs there are in the community, and then we'll see what we can do together, right? So we hope this will be a collaborative process. So that's really our goal. So I'd like to invite Naomi Nightingale up. Everybody probably knows Naomi. So no introduction needed. Just to talk about the church.
How much time you guys have? I don't know if I can squeeze 6, 7 years into the little bit of time I have to talk to you about the church. But I know many of you, work with most of you, and of course my group here, Original Save Venice, raise your hand.
Woo!
And so, I don't know how much of the story you know or don't know, so I'll just tell you like you're hearing it for the first time. So, you know, this church was sold. We won't talk about that guy, but the church was sold. And so the members of the church that lost the lawsuit that they filed against Horace Allen, and that lawsuit was not won in 2017. So I wrote about this because I passed by here one day and the church was all boarded up, and I didn't know why, but when I stopped at the corner I saw Laddie Williams sitting on the church steps. So what's going on? So Laddie's sitting by herself. I know something's going on. So I turned the corner and she told me the story. So I start sitting with her, and then a whole bunch of other people start sitting with her. And we are a very diverse group of individuals that are concerned about life, livelihood, the economy, the gentrification, the diversification, the ability to live in the community, but we most was concerned about saving this church from becoming someone's compound to live in, which would have taken up all the lots across the city. This church actually involves 7 lots, 5 lots on this side, 2 lots on the other side. The lot across the street was land that was owned by Arthur Reese. Arthur Reese was one of the 2 African-American men that actually settled this community here, this 1.5-mile area. When I grew up here, this was the only place black people could live. We could not live east of Lincoln Boulevard, could not live south of California, north of Rose Avenue, and we could not go to Venice Beach. We went to the beach in Santa Monica, which was at the foot of Pico Boulevard. It was called Black Beach, but it was where all the black people could go to Venice. I was young, I loved it there. It never occurred to me that we couldn't go to the beach in Venice because that's where everybody went anyway. Arthur Reese donated this land to build the first structured church, because before that they were meeting in a barn down off of San Juan. And when Arthur Reese donated the money, Abbott Kinney's wife helped provide some of the materials. They brought it actually on a horse and cart to the church. That's how long ago it was. And so the first church, 1927, do I have that right?
Yep.
And the congregation stayed in that church until they outgrew it. And then when they outgrew it, they put their money together, they put their deeds together, and this young man right here, Mr. Rowland, can you please stand up, Pastor? His grandmother gave her deed as collateral to help purchase the land. And so they have a wonderful picture where people are clearing out the first doorway of the former church that was there, across the street and into the double doors of this church. It's just a fascinating picture. And so they occupied this church in 1968. And Pastor E.L. Holmes, you might have seen the plaque that's on the post right there on 7th and Westminster, was the pastor of this church for 45 years, first across the street and then on this side of the street. He passed away in 1999, and his wife was president of the chair of the board at that time, and then she got sick and passed away, and that's how the turnover of the church happened, where the control of the church was lost to the person who didn't have the same sentiment, didn't have the same religious values. The church had no mortgage when Pastor Holmes was here. He was very frugal, very tightly financial-minded person. He used to be a principal. He was every stereotypical idea that you could think of a man who was so staid as a principal. That's the same way he ran the church. And so 2017, the church is sold to Jay Penske, and we began our movement to keep the church intact in the community. We've had rallies here, we've had sit-ins every Sunday sitting in on the church, and more people joined us. And it also became the sacred space to come and protest the killing of black people across the country. You know, George Floyd, makes the names for me, my mind is blank. Taylor, Ahmaud, and so even when we weren't having a rally here, we've learned that people come here when there's protest or when there's some injustice across the country, and they will put wreaths like the one that's on the gate there. We didn't have a rally, but people came and put flowers there anyway, just as a way to recognize that they were acknowledging this as the kind of social justice place where this kind of activities would occur and would continue to occur. We went to hearings where the planning department had approved, and also the Venice Neighborhood Council had approved the building of the plans that Jay Penske had, which would have been all of this land and the land across the street. So we continued to file appeals to the hearings that we lost, and that went on for several years. We took it all the way up to Superior Court to a writ. We finally lost the writ, but that wasn't the last resort. The last resort was actually the Coastal Commission, and the item was on the Coastal Commission for like 3 years, and I don't think it's on the agenda yet. But in the meantime, Mike Bonin, after we grabbed him by the collar and shoved him in a room and to say, what have you done for the black community in all the 30 years that you've been here? And the answer was nothing, and it's about time. So Mike Bonin did join in supporting us. He originally supported the application for the church to become historic designation. That first application, we lost that one to the Office of Historic Research and the Commission. The reason that we lost it is they said that there wasn't enough information, activity, and interactivity of the church with the community from the 70s on. So Ms. Huffman, you were here in the 70s.
I was here in the early 70s.
So you know that there hasn't been any low-income housing built in this community since the 70s.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that was the start of the major gentrification.
Yeah. So the last low-income apartment buildings that were built here are the 15 apartment buildings that you see dispersed throughout the community. Indiana Avenue, Broadway, Vernon, 353 Rennie was the last low-income apartment building. But they were built for 30 years. And after 30 years, the federal government released them for market rate. All except for, is it nine? Nine apartments that are still low income. But during the time that they were released for market rate, there were some strategies that were used by management companies to get people to move out of the community so that they could rent the market rate. Because otherwise, as long as the people were still there, they were low income. When they moved out, that's when they would make them market rate. So if you had someone in your family that had a previous record, you could no longer live in the apartment building. If you had children, like I'll say two boys and a girl, and you had a 3-bedroom apartment, if your daughter moved out because she went to college or moved away, then you needed to downsize to a 2-bedroom. And downsizing to that 2-bedroom meant another cost for you. First and last month's rent and relocation to wherever the other 2-bedroom apartment was. So there were a lot of little strategies that were put in place so that people were forced to move out of the community. And yes, you're right, that was a small-scale gentrification, but it began to ramp up in the 80s and 90s until you see what we have here. So our goal, the second application we wrote, and we included more information about what the 70s and 80s and 90s and the church's activities at that time. I have a PhD in leadership and change and social justice, so I interviewed people who were in the church at the time. We talked about their interaction with the church, the missionary groups that were here, the kind of work that they did, the NAACP. There's not time here that we didn't capture in the first application, but we did in the second application. And we were successful in the second application so that this church now is historic designated. Not just the church, but the land as well. So the church and all 7 lots are historic cultural designated as of 2021. We've had conversations with Tara for the last couple of months and more to talk about our passion for the church, its meaningfulness to this community, and what we would like to see happen with the church as it continues to be an anchor and a refuge for the community, with community services being provided here, training, development, religious services. We'll talk more about that, how that would happen, as a resource center to the community, and since it's part of the housing project, but ensuring accessibility to the larger community as well.
Thank you, Naomi. That was wonderful. So helpful.
All right.
Appreciate it. So I'll tell you a few more things about us, and then we would like to, answer all of your questions, take any feedback you have. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the people that we serve currently, because I know that is probably a question you all have. So as I mentioned earlier, we focus on families and seniors who are making